Hello, that's nuts. I'm just going to do a review on the new Harrows Clic system. I'm going to do the review in two parts. The first part I'm just going to talk about the system, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about the evolution of the dart shaft and flights. And on the second part I'm going to play with the system for maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and then I'll show you the results from doing that. I'm gonna record myself playing with the darts, and then I'll edit a video to show you any impacts or instances with the flight and shaft, so you can see how it works. And I'll probably do a little experiment as well, just to test the durability of the flights, just to see how it works. Well, first of all, the system it's not really a new idea. Obviously there's all-in-one piece flights and shafts have been out for years, as I'll show you in a minute. But what it is Harrows have took all the best ideas from similar systems and they've tried to improve on it. They've tried to make it a design that's durable, and hopefully that'll be borne out when I do the test. And also they've made a new kind of polycarbonate for the stems and a new polyethylene plastic for the flights, which is hopefully going to increase the durability. And the flights at the moment are all in standard shape, but within time there'll be other shapes coming out. Just read what it says on here. Made from a durable high memory substrate, rigid 90-degree flight wing angle. Flights will not come off during play. Flight rotates if a following dart makes contact. 17 degree of longitudinal flex reduces deflections. Flight and shaft weigh the same as traditional system. And on this part of this little poster, it's got a bit of a graphic there which displays all the dimensions of the shaft. There's 3 shafts available at the moment: a short, a midi and a medium, and you can see the distance from the thread to the bottom where the flight attaches, and it gives you the dimensions for where the wing starts as well, so you can measure that up against your normal setup and you should be able to get somewhere near, but I'll test that in a minute just to see how close it is to my usual. There'll be, when it comes out, they'll be in standard shape. I don't think there's any other shapes available at present. Hopefully there'll be more coming soon, and you'll have a black colour, white, blue, red, clear and pink. So there's a variety of different colours available from the off. You can probably see the colours a bit better there. There's also different colours of stems available, and also clear and solid colours. Our dedicated shaft and flight concept that combines a player's need for easy assembly and strength with elegance and style. And these a little bit more explaining about the system. As you can see, it's got a perfect 90-degree angle on the wings of the flights. The short shaft is 23mm, the midi is 30mm and the medium is 37mm. And flight rotates if following darts make contact. Flight will click into position. Insert shaft in a flight. I've read that the wrong way around, but it says the shafts have got 18 degrees flexibility, so I'm probably going to test that. The system comes in these nice little neat boxes, and you've got the 3 flights in there, all neatly packed. I've already opened a box here, so I'm not going to open another box, so I'll show you them in a second. And the shafts are in these little clam style packaging, and it will tell you on the back whether it's a short, midi or medium. So it's a fairly neat packaging what they come in, and hopefully the price is going to be between £4 and £3 for each flight and shaft. So the whole setup of flight and shaft should cost between £6 and £8, which is a little bit cheaper than the other system, so that's one good point. I've got only the blue flights at the moment, and mostly the MIDI blue clear shafts, and this is just a variety of the other shafts. I'll put some close-ups so you can have a good look at them, but that's the short, and then you've got a solid white, that's medium I think, or is it? Yeah, that's medium. And then there's a clear, and transparent pink, another transparent blue, there's a solid red, and there's a solid black. I'm sure there'll be a lot more variety as the system takes off. It should be coming on sale around about August. Like I said, I'll put a close-up of these so you can have a good look at them. Here's a quick close look at all the shafts. That's the medium transparent blue, and the medium solid white, and that's the medium solid black. I think that's the short clear, and the MIDI solid red, and the MIDI clear pink, and a short clear blue. Let's have a look at the red one. As you can see, the shafts are quite flexible. I do think that is going to be the weak point there if they do going to have an accident with the floor, because if it bends then it's going to, but chances are you're not going to get such a strong impact. Alright, let's just have a look at the system setup in the Dart. It spins very freely. You should be able to see on the flights they've got like a reinforced edge, and all the way around it's slightly thicker on the edges. Can't see looking through this camera. There you go. Now that top bit of the shaft pops through onto the open window of the flight, and this little prong on the top of the shaft goes into the middle. So as you push it on, it makes a click sound. That's where the name comes from. And there you go. And as you can see, you've got a 90-degree angle flight. I will be putting some of these up for a prize in a forum competition, so if you want to have a chance of winning a set, then you'll have to look out for when I run that competition. But that's your Harrows Clic. move these out of the way. In the very early days, when people first started, they were using paper flights, wooden shafts. These darts are from the 1920s, and the reason why the paper flights were so popular was because that you could just make your own. But as you can see, they weren't very durable. They could rip easy, and they didn't really look that great, to be honest. But that's what people of the 1920s right up until maybe about the 60s, early 70s, they were still using paper flights, and there was still a lot of darts with wooden shafts around. And also around that time they had feather flights, which this is a traditional feather flight from the 70s, but in the 30s and 40s the flights were more of a one-piece wooden shaft. And as you can see, with feather flights, they do tend to break easy, so again it wasn't a very durable system, and the feathers were quite expensive. So although some people still swear by feathers, I mean there's all different varieties of feather, and if you compare that to a modern shaft and flight, it just almost looks alien really, because most people now are just used to that kind of setup. And I've even got feathers that are almost twice as long as that one, but that's what people used to use in them old days, right up until the 70s, and even people in the 80s were still using them, and there's still people who use them today. So it's a pretty tried and tested system, but things kept evolving. You even got feather flights with springs attached so that the flight would spring out the way, and even paper flights evolved. This is quite a rare dart. This is a spinny paper flight. I've only ever seen one set of these, and these are them. So very rare. It says RF on the flight and it says patent pending, but I have no idea what happened to the records of that. So even spinny flights were out years and years ago. And after feather flights you got more varieties of paper. This is a vulcanized paper. It's a weird kind of a feel, that, but again not very durable. It's a wooden shaft with a pin stuck in it. And Darwin darts was a special flight all of its own. It's a weird kind of a flight when you compare it to today's. It's like a heart shape, but it was usually a barrel with a kind of a plastic shaft. I don't know if you would call that a shaft, but the flights did rotate to some extent, and this is like the other one I just showed you, a vulcanized kind of a paper. And Darwin progressed onto a system like this, which is quite similar to the modern flights, and it comes off and you just pop it back on, and it also rotates. So it just shows you how things have advanced throughout the years. And then another spinny kind of a flight is this one, all plastic, but it's got a metal pin through the middle, and the flights are kind of angled so that this, it's like a, I don't know what you call it, like a spiral kind of a shape, but again it spins out the way. But with these you can't replace them, at least I don't think you could replace them. It was, when that was broke, that was it, you had to buy a new one. And obviously flights progressed into something like this, which is the Unicorn Uni Plume. It's an all-in-one shaft and flight made out of plastic, although it's quite durable, but it's got a lot of flex to it, but it's probably not as durable as some of the flights around now. I have got a lot of these and they can split quite easy, but there was a vast amount of different ideas. That's another one. It's a steel shaft with a flight that does come off. I'm not going to pull it because it feels as if it's stuck on, but it can come off, and then you can replace the flight again. It's an all-in-one. So the idea of a rigid all-in-one flight and shaft isn't new. This is probably the more common one, what people have seen. It's all-in-one moulded. It's flexible, it's bendy, quite rigid in its design, but although the ideas have been around a long time, I think it's still good that people have revisited these ideas and tried to improve on them. But these are a new modern style of shaft. Again, it's a spinny shaft. These are spiral line flights, but these are not very durable. And even during the war they had flights like these which had two pieces of plastic. Again, it's a strange looking dart with a strange flight. It's made out of a spring. So the evolution of the flight and shaft system has been a continual process of finding new things and finding out what works and what doesn't work. But obviously when feather flights were getting expensive, they came out with this system which has been going for years now, and it was a cheap system, just a nylon shaft. Obviously you can get alloy shafts as well. A nylon shaft with a poly flight, and obviously this got popular because it was cheap. You could have a multitude of shapes, colours and designs, lengths of shaft. So that's been the most popular system, and I think it's probably going to continue to be the most popular system. But that doesn't mean that we can't come out with other ideas. And this is an L style shaft. That's still the same kind of a shaft as a normal nylon, but it's got a few features, extra features. And then these are the L flights, which has got a 90-degree angle. These probably feel the closest to the new Harrows Clic in feel. So we've gone to that, and then there was the Cosmo system which I reviewed on another review, and I think this is what started this whole new look at this kind of a system. This is the fixed shaft, Cosmo shaft. And one thing I've always liked about this is the fact that it's so easy to put your flights on, especially if you haven't got very good eyesight like me, and they tend to stay on, although I have had the odd occasion where they've popped off. And then you went back again to another system, the Condor system, which is an all-in-one like that. Again, it's a very bendy plastic, and I quite like the Condor system. I've had quite a few of these, although they haven't been that durable. They have split quite easy, and I think they've mostly kept the shape. and as you can see it's another 90-degree angle, but I think the only problem for me with the Condor system is it just doesn't seem to last as long as I would like it to, and obviously compare the price to that, and then that works out expensive. And then you come to this new Harrows Clic system. Now Harrows have worked out, after looking through the other systems, they've looked at the design and tried to improve on it, tried to make it more durable. The flights just pop on dead easy onto the shaft. The shafts are quite flexible. I think I could probably break that quite easy though if I bend it far enough, but in most cases if your dart does hit the floor it's going to flex, but that extra flex there should hopefully prevent it from breaking if it was more solid. It's certainly more flexible than a nylon stem, and although they are quite thin but I imagine this is going to be the weak point, because that's where the bend is happening the most. So if you do get a bad contact on the floor, then it's probably going to snap there if it does. Again, it's a 90-degree angle. It's made out of a similar kind of material to that L style, but it feels quite a bit thinner. But the edges of the flight are reinforced. They're a little bit thicker than the centre, and it's also got some reinforcement down here. And the reason why it's called a Clic system is because it just clicks when you push it on, and the flight spins quite freely, although it doesn't really spin when you try and shake it with your hand. I don't think it'll spin at all when you're throwing it, so it pretty much feels like it's a solid system. But if it does happen to rattle or shake about, then what you do is, if you prefer it not to spin, you just put an O-ring over there, and then you attach the flight, and that stops it spinning. It tightens it up. It's not spinning now, although if I push it, but it's not spinning freely, and there's nothing at all, no rattle. So that's one way to stop it spinning if you don't like any spinning at all. I don't think it really bothers me. The only time that the flight spinning bothers me is if I can feel it spinning as I'm holding the dart, getting ready to throw it. So I'm gonna weigh this against the flighting system that looks to be about the right. That's a short. That's extra short, so we'll try it with the short. So that's 1.43 grams, and is it that one? No, that one. And that is 1.58. So these are 100 micron flights, so that is actually heavier than that. So I'll just weigh the flight on its own. That's 0.85, and that is 0.73, so obviously the difference is in the shafts. That's a little bit heavier than that flight. but obviously with that being thinner, it's going to be a bit lighter. That's 0.6 grams and 0.85 grams. So there's not a lot in the weight that should be any difference. One thing I do like about these is they are very flexy. If I'm squeezing it there, I can't see, just maybe slightly down there, some white stress marks, but I didn't see them. Giving it a good squeeze. That is the set that I'm going to be using for the next week or two, and then I'll do an update. But this set, I have actually tried to already rip the side of this. I'll give it another go just to see if I can do it. See, I made a mess of it obviously, but you're not going to get somebody pulling it like that with a dart hitting it, but I can't tear it. I can obviously make it stretch, and obviously I've ruined the shape of it, but that's a little bit of an extreme test. Now what I think I've done there is I've bent it and put a kink in it, but I've also stretched the plastic as well to a certain extent, but it's highly unlikely that's going to happen when a dart hits it. But what I'm going to do with that flight is I'm going to put it in some warm water and see if I can bring it back as close as possible to the shape, and then I'll show you that on the second part of the review. But there you go, I'm going to fold the flight up. That's how flexible it is. I've folded it quite flat there. Obviously that's not going to happen when you just throw on the darts, but it's pretty much come back to its normal shape, apart from that one there that I put the kink in. So my other test with that is I'm going to take one of these flights, I've got a set of darts here, I'm not even sure what these are. No, it's just an old brass set. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into that flight pocket, and I'm going to leave it there for a week, and then I'm going to see what happens when I take it out, because if these are so flexible you might be able to store them flat. It doesn't say you can, but I just want to test to see whether you can or not. Actually I'm going to put two in. So I've got the two in there, and we'll see what happens. And with this one I'm going to destroy it if I can. Obviously the sharp points of your steel tip darts I think are going to be the thing that causes the most problems. And looking at the system, to me, I think the weakest part is going to be just there, where there's a very slight gap, but the fact is that the flights rotate, so you might get a Robin Hood of that kind of a thing, but if the flight rotates out the way it may not happen. And I think obviously I've put the dart right through the I don't know if you can see it, but I've put it right through the flight there, put a hole in it, and I think if that happens down here, that could be where the flights may split. but as the flights rotate, chances are it's going to move out the way, but around here is definitely going to be the area that you have most chance of putting a hole in, because that's where it's a little bit more solid. And this is a bit of an extreme test, but the flights can be penetrated quite easily with the dart point, as you can see, but it's whether it happens during normal play. But if you notice, I can still close up the holes quite well, so that's quite impressive really. And it hasn't actually put a split in the flight, it's just put a hole in it. I think the edges of the flights are stronger than what the Cosmos system is, and my guess is they'll probably flex out the way because it's so flexible. I'm going to end up poking the point in my hand in a minute, but these are quite an edgy dart, so I'm going to be throwing these darts. And you can see I've roughed that up now. Don't know if you can see these darts, but they have quite a strong mini shark grip on, and I'm holding the flight so it's not rotating out the way. So obviously you're going to get them roughed up, but it's how well they last under normal conditions, and that's what I'll find out in the next couple of weeks, and then I'll do the second part of the review, and then I'll give you my comments about how well it's been or how well it hasn't been. But as it stands, I'm quite impressed by the system itself. I'm just hoping that the flights are going to stay durable. Obviously you're not going to get extremes like what I'm doing here, but if under normal conditions they last well, then it'll be a pretty good system, I think. So that's the end of this review for now, and the next, it is now the 14th of July, so I'll do the second part in either a week or 2 weeks time. So thanks for watching.